I'm just going to get started because it might just encourage everything to move a bit quicker. I have seen so many faces in here today from over my career. It's been an absolute delight. And I'm also seeing a lot of new faces as well. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lisa O'Keefe. I am Insight Director at Sport England. Today, I'm going to talk to you about three things. So the first thing is, I am going to talk to you about the job we are collectively trying to do to make it easier for women and girls to be active. And I'm going to start off with why that's important. Then I'm going to give you a little bit of the background to This Girl Can and some of the insights which have shaped the campaign. I am always very happy to talk about when I've got things right. I'm equally happy to talk about when I've got things wrong. So I'll be sharing some of that today and some of the lessons learnt. And then finally, I'm just going to give you an example of a programme where we use the same approach. So Insight's led to develop a programme, particularly to create an end-to-end experience for a particular audience of women when it comes to swimming. So that's the gig today. So hopefully you're in the right room. Right. Why is it important? Well, we live in a fantastic time when it comes to women and girls sport and physical activity. We really do. I was out of the country last week, but from where I was still seeing the amazing results of the Solheim Cup team. It was absolutely filling my social media, and I get the sense it was probably well covered over here. The Women's Football World Cup, 28.1 million people watching that, and 11.7 million people in England watching the semi-final between England and USA. Parkrun. Who in here does parkrun? Fantastic. Parkrun continuing to grow. Numbers of women in parkruns, again, continue to grow, and women dominating. This picture here that you see, this is Newcastle. This is actually on a very cold Thursday evening when 3,000 women turned up for the annual This Girl Can 5K run on a Thursday evening in Newcastle. That event, in its fourth year, is doubling year on year. So when we hear these numbers, when we see women's sport on the television, when we see the power of the National Lottery to enable Olympians and Paralympians, many of them women, to win these amazing medals, it's easy for us to sometimes think, oh, that's job done, isn't it? Actually, we've done the women's sport bit. What are we going to move on to now? Well, my big message today is we have far from done the women's sport bit. I am Insight Director. I'm going to give you some numbers. So here's the first one. The gender gap. So this is looking back at the active people figures when we first started looking at the numbers. And you can see the difference there between men and women. 1.8 million gender gap when we look at the numbers of adults in England who are regularly exercising. Now, you'll see that over the years, numbers have gone up, the numbers have gone down, but we've not been able to narrow that, right? And when I was looking at that, people in this industry said to me, well, that's just the way it is, Lisa. That's just the way it is. It's just normal. Women just don't do sport. They don't like competition. They don't like exercise. You just got to face facts. This is how it's always going to be. Well, you might get the sense already, those of you who don't know me, I'm not one for kind of taking that on the chin, and I don't believe that can't be changed. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the ways in which we've gone about trying to do that. Now, that's adults, and we were talking about children today. So let's look at what's happening with children. These are taken from the active lives numbers. So we do a survey of 130,000 children every year in England. These figures were published in December. The next set of figures are published again in December coming. And you can see that there is a gender gap at every single age group here, right? Now, that's also, we also look at the numbers of regularly active children. Just across the board, children are not moving enough. But there's the gender gap. And you're probably not surprised by that, okay? It's not hot news. But what really, really upsets me is at the age of 5, we already have that gender gap. All right? that's what the numbers say. What happens when we actually speak to children and women about this? So I could have taken so many different surveys. I've just taken this one from Youth Sport Trust and Women in Sport. So if you see on the left-hand side, a third of girls 14 to 16 years old don't like people watching them taking part in PE. A third of 14 to 16-year-old girls are not confident enough to exercise in front of other people. A third, almost a third, 29% of girls don't do PE because their perception of their own ability is that they're not good enough. A third of our children don't feel good enough, don't feel able to exercise. So that makes me really upset. Here's why I have reason to hope. So 41% of girls saying that they're not happy with the amount of physical activity they do, and then a whopping 75% of women telling us that they'd like to be more active, right? So this is a broken system. In my world, and I look at this, sport in particular, but sport and exercise and physical activity, they are not working as well for women and girls as they do for men and boys. And when people say to me, well, what is it? What do we need to understand? What is it that we have to understand about how these people need to change? I get really angry because the problem doesn't lie with the people who are not exercising. The problem lies with the system that's not providing the right kind of opportunity and experience and not really lining up with people's motivations and needs and desires. It's the system that needs to change, not these people. So, before I move on to This Girl Can, I wanted to share this today because I'm going to be talking about this a lot this year, and I'm going to give you a wee sneaky peek. When we want to behave, when we want to change somebody's behaviour, behavioural scientists will tell you that you need 3 things to be present, okay? Now, this model, which is called the COM-B model, is a kind of amalgamation of all the behavioural science around what it takes to change people's behaviour. But what it basically says is, if you want a particular behaviour to be exhibited, 3 things have to be there: capability, opportunity, and motivation. Now, I've already spoken to you about how many girls don't feel capable, their own self-perception of their capabilities. They don't feel able to take part in PE. So that's a big deal. Right? If we've got people who just don't feel capable, if they look at something and go, I cannot do that, that's not for me, then you are not going to get the desired behaviour. If the opportunity isn't right, if they look at it and they think, well, that's not for me, the people who take part in that are very different from me, I won't feel welcome there, again, you will find it very hard. And if it doesn't meet their motivations, their needs, then again, why would they do it? You know, we've got busy lives. Now, I'm going to be talking about this a lot in the year to come because we're producing a segmentation of the population of both adults and children in England where we're going to show you, it's almost like a graphics equalizer. For those of you of my age who know what I'm talking about now, we'll be able to show you each of the different levels of capability, opportunity, and motivation for each of the different segments. I really do think this could be a big step forward for us in terms of understanding the population of this country and which bit we need to be able to concentrate on and focus on if we're going to make that opportunity right for them, okay? This is really obvious stuff, isn't it? I mean, you're probably sitting there going, that's obvious, isn't it? Yeah, I often think I should be director of the bleeding obvious. But the reality is, I promise you, we're not doing this stuff because most sport and physical activity in this country is designed for people who love sport and physical activity. Don't start me. Right, okay, This Girl Can, otherwise you're never getting to lunch. I thought it'd be helpful for today for me to just share some of the insights behind This Girl Can. Who is aware of the campaign? Excellent. But that doesn't stop me from playing one of the ads really loud, does it? Okay, let's listen to one of the ads. Oh, come on. just never tire of it, to be honest. So many of you know the campaign, but you may not know some of the research which sits behind it and the reason why we created it in the way in which we did. Now, the unifying insight here is fear of judgment, because when we looked at all of the research, everything that was out there as to why women and girls find it harder to exercise, we found that there were this fear, and it's a conversation in our own head about whether or not we could or should be doing activity, and in particular sport. And there are three aspects to that fear of judgment, and I've listed them here. So appearance. If I turn up, will I fit in with the crowd? Will I just look like I'm the new kid turning up? Will I be in different kit? Will it be obvious that I'm the beginner? Will I just kind of, a point when I just want to kind of get in there and just get in amongst the group and just sort of be part of the team pretty quickly? Will I stand out? So that's the first fear. The second one is ability. So when I get there, will it be obvious I'm the beginner, or will it be obvious I'm just rubbish at this because I can't catch, or I can't throw, or I'm on the bike at the back of the group, or, I find myself in that situation where I really want to be part of it, but I really don't want somebody to throw me that ball or pass me that ball in case I can't stop it. And you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you're a woman or a girl when it comes to ability, because you're either really, really good and too good and a bit of a tomboy, or you're a bit rubbish because you throw like a girl. Right? And that's kind of the two ends of the spectrum, and you quite quickly sort of put into categories there. And then the third one is priorities, which you might have seen recently, because we did quite a lot on this. A lot of women were telling us that actually finding even 30 minutes in a week for themselves feels the wrong thing to do when they've got lots of other priorities, usually family, work, other commitments. Taking that little bit of time out, they're worried about the perception other people will have about them doing that. So those were the three aspects of fear of judgment. So the campaign was about talking about this, because again, for all the years that I've worked in the industry, nobody ever talked about this stuff. And I knew in the focus groups we were onto a winner when one woman, we presented this and we asked some focus groups, and one woman just sort of stopped and she looked at me and she said, yeah, well, actually, I'm really happy to talk about my version of that, because I go out for a run twice a week. When I go out for a run, I deliberately run an extra 1 kilometre, not because I want to run an extra 1 kilometre, but it means that I avoid the parade of shops, where usually there's some young lads standing outside there, and they, without fail, comment on the size of my bum. So to avoid that, I go the long way around. And she told this story, and there was silence in the room, at which point the woman next to her turned to her and said, Christ, I thought I was the only one that felt like that. And that was the minute we realised that this really was an important conversation to talk about. Now, in my naivety, so here's where I learned a massive lesson, I thought the answer to this is to talk about it, to get it out there, to create a campaign of women talking about this, women talking to women, encouraging each other and saying, yeah, okay, this is a thing, but we don't need to feel like this. And if we do that, it'll go away. Well, how wrong was I? Because what I've learned over time is it doesn't go away, it's managed. And for many women who are regularly active, they just have ways of managing their version of this fear of judgment. So it could be, I'm thinking about joining a Breeze cycle ride. I'm going to Google. I'm looking for some film, video of who's taking part. Who are the women there? What sort of distances are they covering? Who's the instructor? Would I feel comfortable if I turned up there? It could be, one of my colleagues the other day, she was thinking of joining a fitness class, and she started talking about it in work, just sort of gauging people's response to her going to this class. She was just sounding it out. Did we think that was a good idea? Did we think it was ridiculous? She's just doing a bit of due diligence. It could be, and we see many examples of this, women who deliberately follow an instructor. right? So they stick with the instructor because they know that instructor creates the right environment. And actually, I'll do lots of different activities with that instructor because I trust them. I know it'll be right. I know it will be for me. And if you think about it, it makes sense, doesn't it? You know, we're always doing our research in lots of different aspects of our life, and it's no different here. But often, we don't kind of think about this when we're delivering sporting activity. So when you're delivering to particular audiences, and particularly in this case women, and groups of women, really understanding what that aspect of the fear of judgment might be within your environment, within your sport, within your facility, activity, really understanding from them, how do they manage it? How did they get over their fear and actually walk in here? I remember, actually, I use Breeze as a cracking example, but I remember when the Breeze program first started, and not many people were turning up, not many women were turning up. And when I looked at the British Cycling website, there's not very much in there about the program. And I said to them, the problem is, you say cycling and you say British cycling, we all think blokes in Lycra, Bradley Wiggins. What have you done on the website to change those perceptions? So really think hard about that in terms of understanding your audience. The next insight for me is that fear of judgment actually doesn't go away as we get older. And interestingly, when we progressed the campaign, we moved it on to women aged 40 to 60. So we widened the age group. But before doing that, I wanted to know if fear of judgment was still a thing. So we did quite a lot of focus group work again with women in that age category, just to establish how they feel about it. What's interesting is fear of judgment is still a thing, but it's different. It has a slightly different feel to it. So a lot of women, as they get older, are worried that they're not as good as they used to be when it comes to sport and physical activity. They were concerned about hurting themselves. And they were definitely concerned about kind of just not fitting in with everyone else because there would just be this gulf in ability again, okay? So their self-perception, and then add age to that, and I'm putting my perception of my ability right down here somewhere. And also, I heard a lot from these focus groups, oh, these activities, these are for young people. They're not designing, these are not for us. And they'd be really upset if I turned up. I know they wouldn't want me there. I know I wouldn't be any good, and I know I wouldn't be welcome. So that was a real constant message. The other one, which was really interesting to me, was that a lot of women, as they get older, talk about feeling pressurized to exercise for health benefits. Now, we see a lot of this, don't we? And in fact, we were talking about We Are Undefeatable, which is one of our current campaigns. There's a real fine line here between getting this right and getting this wrong, because an awful lot of the messaging around the health benefits and that fear of health conditions, it can be portrayed as that kind of fear and kind of putting the fear of God up people. That really doesn't motivate people to exercise. It really doesn't, because we discount things way into the future, right? What we've got to do is think about positive messages about the benefits of being active as opposed to the do it to prevent X, Y, and Z. So again, it was a real strong sense coming out from that audience. So that's my key messages. Fear of judgment's important. Understand it for the audiences that you're working with, and please don't think it goes as women get older. The final one that I learned when it came to the campaign was seeing and hearing the whole story from women like me. Now, I hear people talk about this a lot, and to be fair, I have too, which is this idea that if you want to try and encourage somebody to take part in a particular activity, you've got to show it's for people like them, yeah? They've got to see women that look like them, that sound like them, that act like them, doing that activity, because then you make that link to go, okay, I could go. What I realised through the campaign as it went on was a lot of women were telling me, we love the campaign. We love the women who are featured in the campaign. Really motivational. But obviously, they don't have the same challenges I do. And that kind of stopped me. And I was looking at this for a while and talking to a lot of women in different focus groups. And what I was hearing was, you've really got to spell this out to me as to how these women who are active, doing this thing that I find incredibly difficult to do and to fit into my life, please explain to me how they're managing to do it. So really tell that whole story. There was this kind of view amongst a lot of focus groups, oh, well, they must have somebody that can look after the kids, or they must be able to fit it in around work, or they must have subsidised activities, or they must have this, or they must have that. And the reality was they didn't have any of that, but they found a way around it. And we have to tell more of that story, because often your audience will make those assumptions if you don't spell it out. Right, so that was This Girl Can. I'm going to move on to a couple of examples of how we've tried to use the insight to redesign swimming. Now, why swimming? Well, swimming is hugely important to us when it comes to the nation being active. It is the 6th biggest activity in this country when we look at the numbers of adults that are taking part. 4.5 million adults swim regularly. 56% of regular swimmers are female. So really important to us from that perspective. It's also really important because 20% of people who swim in this country only swim, right? They don't do any other sports or physical activities. So if they stop swimming, we are losing them to the numbers. They're losing the benefits from being active. It's a really, really important activity to us. What you can see here are the numbers of adults regularly swimming over the years. This is the active lives data. And it's not a great picture because the numbers have been declining over the last few years. And what's even worse from our perspective is the numbers of women are declining at a faster rate. All right, so really important activity, one of the few where there are more women than men, but the numbers of women leaving the sport at a much faster rate than men. When we started to look at this, I did exactly the same thing, if I'm honest, that I did with This Girl Can. We go back to the research. We looked at all of the available information as to why people were or were not swimming in this country. And we were able to boil it down, basically, to 7 key insights that were driving people's behaviour when it comes to the pool. Now, I'm just going to pick out, for reasons of time, 2 or 3 of these. But the first one is the sharply rising cost of swimming. When we looked at it, and this is probably about 2 years ago now, and we looked at the rising cost of swimming, the only other activity that was rising at a faster rate in the leisure category was Premiership football tickets. Everything else in the leisure category were increasing at a slower rate than swimming, right? So prices going up at a fast rate. Now that's fine if people really value that experience, right? So if this is the best thing ever and it's a great experience for you, your tolerance for increasing cost is probably better than in other situations. But what we find is that people were saying the experience in the pool wasn't meeting their needs, and particularly open sessions when you can just turn up and splash around in the pool. And that makes sense, doesn't it? Because I could go down to a local swimming pool on a Tuesday morning. There's absolutely nobody in there. I pay my £5.60, £6.80, whatever it is these days. I've got the whole pool to myself, right? I have the best time ever. I come out, I feel fantastic. And I put it in my mind and I go, right, 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, I am going back to the pool next week, which I duly do. Hand over my money, feeling really great about myself, walk into the pool, and there's 50 kids having a great time, but they're in my pool. That is a fundamentally different experience the following week. That's one of the problems, of course, that swimming pools have, and it's hard to guarantee that experience. Swimming's not visible or relatable on a day-to-day basis. Now, I don't know about you, but I have certainly I like to think never posted a picture of myself on the side of my local authority swimming pool on Facebook, commenting on what a great time I've had. But I do know I've done it many a time on my bicycle, and everyone's pissed off that I'm filling their social media feed with all of my exploits on a bike. I certainly don't do it in a swimming pool. And that's one of the problems. Again, when you talk about swimming, the image which that conjures up in people's minds, it may be an image from the Olympics or Paralympics when we win gold. Equally, it may be of a 1980s swimming pool going through that foot bath with the plasters in it into a really cold, horrible pool. It might be. But that's the thing, unless we provide images which counter that, you are very much leaving it up to your target audience to conjure up their own view of that activity if you've done nothing to change that, right? And that's one of the big problems for swimming. It's not very visible, it's not very relatable. So, what did we do about it? Well, we set about trying to create an end-to-end customer experience, very much targeting our This Girl Can audience. And the reason why we did that was because when we spoke to women who are following the campaign and real fans of it, and we said to them, what activities would you like to do more of? One of the top activities was swimming. Right? Go figure. Here we are again. Numbers are going down fastest for this audience, yet they tell us this is the one they want to do. That tells me we need to think about what we're delivering. So we set about looking at that end-to-end experience and created a campaign, a product called This Girl Can Swim. I'm also director of Bleeding Obvious as well. So it's This Girl Can Swim. And we used the campaign, the momentum behind the campaign to try and direct women who are real supporters of the campaign back to their local authority swimming pools. And we did this in 70 pools across the country. And we genuinely worked hard with the operators to redesign what happened in that pool. And not just what happened in the pool, but what happened from the beginning, right at the start of that customer journey, because that's one of the keys for me. The customer journey isn't just the journey from the reception to the poolside and back again, which is often where we focus our time and attention. The customer journey actually has lots of different aspects to it. And this was when we created the experience, these were all the different aspects of that customer journey that we focused on. And we asked ourselves, right, where are all the hassles? Where are all the really shitty parts of this experience, either in the minds of people, either the perception or in reality, which mean they are more likely than not to swim. And again, we asked our audience. We brought them in with the operators, and we asked them what it was like. Now, I haven't got time to go through all of these, but I'm going to take you through two of them, right? And the point I'm trying to make is the point I've been trying to make all morning, which is the key here is to know who your audience is and ask them. Ask them what they want, why they want it, and ask them, does their current experience meet those needs, right? Because what you'll find is you'll hear some stuff you just couldn't imagine. So here's two examples. So I'll take the first one, which is facilities. There is a perception amongst a lot of adults in this country that swimming pool changing rooms are unclean. Does anyone share that perception? My mum says it all the time. She's like, don't go down the swimming pool. Yeah, so you would be staggered at the number of adults, in this case women, who we asked, who said to us one of the biggest things that puts them off swimming is getting changed in dirty changing rooms. Now remember, for a lot of these women, they might not have been in a swimming pool since 1982, right? So part of that could be because they've not been in a modern swimming facility. But if this is the perception that our potential audience hold, we need to do something about that. Now, when this was coming out time and time again in the focus groups, the operators were saying, well, it's just simply not true. It's simply not true. We are cleaning the changing rooms all the time. All the time. They are spotless. And we say, well, when are you cleaning them? And they say, well, mostly we roster it at quiet times and at the end of the day. We can give them a good old clean when everybody's out. Now, that makes sense, doesn't it? Get the job done when the place is relatively empty. But of course, what that's doing is, it's just exacerbating that perception that nobody is cleaning the changing rooms because the public don't see it happening, right? So then, when we started to explain that to the operators, one of them said, oh, we could do something about that. What could you do? And they're like, well, we could just re-roster. We could just re-roster the swim teams so that they're in the pool during the busiest time so people see it. It's cost them absolutely nothing, but it's had a massive effect because it absolutely changed the perception of people in the swimming changing rooms. And because they explained this to the staff and they shared all of the insights with the staff in the facility, they got really sort of exercised by this. And they said, well, we want to change this. We want to get this message out. This is what we do. So one of the pools, just one of the pools, off their own back, produced this.
We know how important it is to keep our changing room spotless.
And our poolside pristine.
We are the Swim Clean team. Armed with mops, buckets,
squeegees and sprays.
we work hard to give you a sparkling swimming experience.
We're also here to help and to make your swimming experience as easy as possible.
Please ask us if you need help with lockers, finding an empty changing cubicle, or baby changing facilities. If you have any other questions, we'd love to help you.
So what are you waiting for? Take the plunge today.
It's a really simple fix, but that went all over social media sites in that particular part of the country. It was on their main website. It was really visible, and they really got that message out. A really simple fix to a problem that was created out of the operator trying to do the right thing and just do the cleaning at the end of the day. So there's one. Let me give you one more.
We know how important it is to keep our changing...
Right. Treating swim like the gym. Despite everything I've just said about the swimming room changing rooms, swimming in many people's minds is quite a sterile experience. And by that I mean there's just no interaction, right? Now, for some people that's great. I just want to get into the pool, just want to get in, do my own thing, please nobody speak to me, I just want to swim, I just want to be left alone. But for a lot of women that we spoke to in the focus groups, they said, actually, it's quite off-putting. And it's particularly off-putting because of the starey person. That got me really worried. I was starting to think, what am I starting to understand here? Who is the starey person? Does anybody know who the starey person is in the swimming pool? Yeah, the lifeguard. The lifeguard. The one person who's absolutely there to look after you, but in the minds of a lot of women who were going to the swimming pool was the scary, starey person who was quite off-putting. They never spoke, never said anything, never interacted with them. Now, honestly, I was gobsmacked when I heard this because it just never entered my mind. And I can absolutely tell you, it did not enter the minds of the operators of the swimming pools who were with me listening to that. And of course, they were like, oh, I can't believe it. You know, we're doing that for the good of the people in the pool. They just need to understand. They just need to understand that that person is there to look after them. At which point I said, let's all leave the room. No, they don't need to understand that. You need to understand it, and you need to think about what you might do to change that. Well, we absolutely cannot change what the pool lifeguard does. They have to do what they do. And I said, that's fine. Who else can we introduce into the poolside area to change the dynamic? Oh, we can't do that. cannot do that. You need to understand, Lisa, it's a very cost-sensitive model, this. We cannot roster somebody else on the poolside. I'm like, but if you were in the gym, you wouldn't think twice about having somebody in there just to look after people and make sure they're making the most of the space, would you? You wouldn't think twice. We wouldn't put somebody in a sports hall and just say, oh, just run around for an hour. Just do your own thing. Just do your own thing. But we do allow people to just turn up at a swimming pool and just do their own thing and leave it to chance that they're going to have a good time. So we put a poolside helper on the pool whose job was just to engage with the women that were coming in and just to make sure they were getting the best out of that time in the pool. Now, here's my next lesson, and it's my final lesson for today, which is when you design something and you put it in place, you've got to stay close to it and understand if it's working in the way you intended. Let me give you 2 examples. When we developed this program, I actually spent a lot of time in swimming pools. I actually, for the first time in about 20 years, got my swimming costume on and swam in a lot of swimming pools. And in one of the swimming pools, I turned up and the poolside helper was there. And she introduced herself and she said, why, what are you looking to get out of your session? And I said, well, I'm not really sure. I've not really been swimming for about 20 years. I don't really know what I'm going to do. But I saw the This Girl Can campaign, and I saw the poster, and I thought, oh, come along. And she said, well, get in the water then, and just give me a couple of lengths, and I'll have a look at your technique. Right, so I am somebody who's not swum for 20 years. I'm really anxious about going in there. I'm playing a part, right? I'm really anxious about going in there. And the first thing she wants me to do is lengths of the pool. It turned out she was a swim teacher, and she absolutely did with me what she would do with punters coming in for swimming lessons. And then, for the next 40 minutes, she made me do 20-odd lengths where she was trying to adjust my hand position into the water. Right? I am not joking about this, right? Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, Lisa, you can deal with that. And of course, yes, I could. But imagine if that is genuinely somebody who's not been in a pool for 20, 30 years, and that was the experience that they got. I came out of there absolutely knackered, and the following day, I had another pool session to go to, so I wasn't best pleased. The following day, I went to a pool session, and there was a poolside helper. And she introduced herself. And I was like, oh, shit, what have I created here? Like, I've created a monster, right? I've created a monster. So she said, what are you looking to get out of your pool session? I said, well, I'm not really sure. Thinking I'm pretty sure what I don't want to do. I'm not really sure. I've not been in the pool for 20-odd years, but I saw the advert. I thought I'd come down. I thought I'd give it a go. And she said, fantastic. Well done, you. Big hand. She said, look, I'm going to be over there, right? Don't worry about me. But if you want anything, just wave or just give me a call and I'll come over. But you just get in the water. She said, it's lovely temperature today. Just get in there and enjoy it. So I got in and I did a couple of lengths. While I was there, 2 women came in. They got into the pool. She did exactly the same thing with them. And they said, well, actually, we saw the poster. We're big fans of This Girl Can. Funnily enough, we've been thinking about coming down to this pool for probably the best part of 6 months. We've been thinking about going to aqua aerobics. We're not really sure what it involves. We're not really sure if it's for us, but it sort of sounds quite good. She said, well, funnily enough, I'm the aqua aerobics instructor. She said, if you want, she said, it's entirely up to you. She said, but if you want, why don't you swim down to the bottom corner of the pool? She said, I'll get a couple of bits of kit out. She said, I'll just show you the first 2 or 3 moves that we do at the aqua aerobics class. She said, and then if you decide to come along, you'll know the first 2 or 3 moves, so you'll fit in. You'll know exactly what's going on, and nobody will know you're a beginner. I was sitting, honestly, I was like earwigging in the pool. I thought if I'd written this woman's script myself, it couldn't have been more perfect. I went back to that pool 2 weeks later, and I saw her again, and I don't know how they did it, but I walked into the pool, and she went, Lisa. Right, and I said, Lisa, great to see you. She said, how's your back? I've got a bit of a sore back. How's your back? I said, it's good. She said, I'm sorry. I said, I'm sorry I've not been down a couple of weeks. I've been really busy. And she went, oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. I said, I was in here a couple of weeks ago and a couple of women came in and you showed them the aqua aerobics stuff. I said, did they come back? Did they come back? She went, yeah, they came back 2 days later, brought 4 mates, and they've been coming back ever since. Right? So there, even when you've got the insight and you design a solution, if you don't have the right people and if they don't understand and have that empathy for their audience, it may fail the first time round, but you need to understand why and you need to change. Don't give in because it's not working straight off, I guess is the big message. So, in summary, fear of judgment is a unifying barrier. It really is a thing. It really is a thing. And taking time to understand what aspect of that exists amongst your various different clients and audiences is really important. And really challenging yourself to think about how do we have to change in order to allow our target audience to manage that fear is really important. It doesn't go away. It's managed. When you're telling the stories of people who are taking part in your activities, make sure they can see and hear that whole story, that you're not leaving a gap in that story where they can fill that with a presumption about why that person can do it but I can't. Really tell that story. And then 3 last ones for me. If you design it for everyone, you design it for no one. Right? Really important again. And I just see so many examples of this. In fact, it's probably even worse in our industry because often we design it for people who love the activity. So it's really, really important. When we design activity, the people who are most likely to find it are the ones who love sport and physical activity and absolutely understand the networks and absolutely know where to go. They're not the people who need these carefully crafted interventions that we're creating, right? So think about your audience, design it for them. Really listen to what the customer actually wants. The fix can often be quite small and simple and cost you absolutely nothing, other than being prepared to change what you do, rather asking them to fit into the way you want to deliver it. And finally, focus on that full customer journey. Really understand that end to end and what it's going to take to really keep that person coming back and be solution focused. I hope that's been really helpful today. I'm here over lunch. I'm here over the day if you want to ask me any questions. Thanks so much.